Hello, my little minions. Lord Croc Squirrel here with the ever fun and melodious SidAlpha.
Melodious, you say?
Well, that's actually a word I've heard used when you appear on my channel. It is.
I'm pretty sure that was me, though.
No, it was actually somebody else. You actually picked up an extra fan from my channel.
Excellent. Always
Well,
glad to welcome new people.
Yep, she actually accused me of being a radio announcer at one point, and she says you're better at it than I am, which is sadly true.
It's
All
the
right.
deeper voice.
It is. And welcome to the second half of our Siskel and Ebert style review of Tales of Berseria. Now, we actually spent a lot of the last video, and there will be a link below there. You may be seeing it on your screen now, in fact. But we talked about the things that we really kind of liked about the game, and not as much about some of the things maybe we didn't like. But I didn't quite get to all of my commentary about the story. I've actually seen more of it than you have. I finally managed to make it out as far as the chunk of geography that was present for the demo, and oh, wow, there's a lot more story there.
Yeah, I thought I was actually almost caught up to you there for a little bit, but then you sprung ahead of me.
Well, you did actually get caught up to me, and I still had about 5-6 hours more into the game than you did at that point. And I actually sat down and took some more time to play with it in the last few days. It was actually right close to just at the first of the month. You were right there with me.
Yeah, I skipped through a lot of the side story arcs and everything like that. I didn't wait for all of the voice acting to complete. I just read what was on the screen and then skipped ahead of it. So, which is not necessarily a good thing because, the voice acting, this is actually the vast majority of the dialogue in this game is fully voice acted, which actually took me by a bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting that.
And actually for recent Tales games, PlayStation 2, 3, and 4 era games, it's actually common to have it almost completely voice acted. Little side notes from folks who just generally don't matter, but in this case, we actually have events that are listed on your minimap, no less, with big white speech bubbles with an exclamation point, and those are fully voice acted, complete with comments from the peanut gallery, usually Roku or Magilu. See, and Magilu is actually the character I love to hate, because she is about as snarky as they come.
Really, I love her because she's snarky.
You love to hate her, and the game wouldn't be nearly as entertaining in some ways without her. Especially when she gets around Laphicet and starts making suggestions.
Yeah, she definitely has. She's definitely one of those people that you could picture just wallowing in delight in the chaos that they've created.
What, imagine? No, she's been doing this. She actively does this. I don't know if you've been listening, because at the end of combat, they usually have a little bitty tiny subskit that they do, and one of the ones that appeared recently is Magilu, Laphicet, and Velvet, where Laphicet runs up and tries to touch Velvet's bracer blade. And she says, "No, don't touch that. You'll get hurt, or you'll hurt yourself." And Magilu sneaks up behind him and says, "That means the rest of her is fair game." To which Velvet looks over at her and says, "Only if you really want to get hurt." And Laphicet is actually the embodiment of your average 10-year-old.
Oh,
He
yeah,
really is.
absolutely.
And he shares a lot in common with his namesake. So
Now,
much so that I'm inclined to think that the namesake thing in question is a little more accurate than Let's On.
probably. Although, yeah, it's definitely interesting watching the interactions with Magalu and her companion that she finally gets back.
Bienfu. Oh wow.
Bienfu.
She stole Bienfu back from she's absolutely dead weight until I think it's our second actual duel with Eleanor.
Eleanor.
And Eleanor actually in and of herself is a very interesting sort of character. She's got this sort of high and mighty creed of her own, I suppose you could call it.
Yeah, she's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, carry on.
I was gonna say she strikes me very much as the girl who was always sheltered in school. She has very high-minded ideals and also probably cares way too much. And she has difficulty coming to grips with things when her preconceptions are challenged.
Yes, she does. And actually, there's another post-combat skit with Laphicet and Eleanor and Velvet that kind of encapsulates it nicely. And I know this one because I've seen it probably about 15, 20 times. They get a little old after a while. Where she talks about, needing more training because they had kind of a rough time during the previous fight. And Laphicet says, "Is training hard?" And her response is, "Well, it's necessary, so no, it's not." And Velvet's over there in the background going, classic honor roll student. But you always see these kind of little bits of humor running around here and there. Now,
yeah, there's also the dirty book segments.
Yeah, no, Bienfu. I'm gonna really. I keep waiting for Velvet to get her to get that left hand of hers on Bienfu. Really.
Yeah. No, it's Bienfu is a tiny, cute little character, but he's very much a dirty old man.
Dirty old man? No, dirty bastard. He's wow.
Oh yeah, which is awesome. I love that this tiny, cute little thing is just wow. Really.
Yeah, he's our mascot character, and he does a fair job of playing the mascot. He's nowhere near as cute as some of the others that have come up. And in fact, if you pre-ordered the game, you got a little 15-minute skit that went with it. It's actually a video that went with it to kind of introduce the characters and all the other sort of fun stuff. That's actually hosted by Bienfu.
Hosted by Bienfu.
Yep. Needless to say, the jokes fly, and Bienfu winds up being the butt monkey again. Actually, Magalu is pretty much our butt monkey right now, but that's beside the point. All right, a couple of things of interest as far as the combat system, as far as the combat mechanics, and leveling. Believe it or not, It's a very strange sort of thing that goes on. I went just to give this thing a good test and kind of push things over into push things forward a little bit. I actually went and bought the $20 DLC that came with the game that included all the little bonuses, and then I used them on the existing playthrough just to see what would actually change. The damage numbers went up a little bit, but a good chunk of that is actually going to be dependent not so much on your level but your gear. Because you're still not going to one-shot the stuff that you were struggling. If you were struggling with it at level 20, at level 64, you're not struggling with it quite so much, but you're still not one-shotting them.
Yeah, I actually did notice that to a certain amount. I was like, I'm not gaining as many levels as I thought I would. And, the level gains, I did notice that the level gains themselves didn't really do all that much.
Although one of the things it does do is give you a considerable amount more staying power. You actually wind up with a whole lot more hit points.
Yeah, that
But
it does do. But as far as your damage output and abilities and things like that, that's separate to your leveling for the most part.
well, mostly, a battle that took I actually managed to get one particular battle back to back. One right before I applied the DLC level ups, and one right after, and it was almost the same conflict. It took me a minute and a half the first time, and I was down to about half that at level 64. Whereas under normal circumstances, I should have just kind of blown through it.
Right.
At least you would think I would just kind of blow through those guys in 5 seconds or less. That didn't happen, and that's on the same difficulty. The other thing is the auto battle. Unlike a lot of earlier Tales games, the auto battle AI is actually pretty good. I wind up using it for trash mobs because it actually hurts if I don't. I learned this the hard way playing Tales of Xillia before I realized that full auto mode actually freaking worked properly. I have problems with carpal tunnel syndrome, and Xillia is a big part of that. But it actually wound up being that I can give my hands a rest if I use auto battle every once in a while, and it still works,
Right.
which is terrifying.
No, it works. It works pretty well, and even the AI schemes for your companions when you're battling, they actually do a fairly decent job. They stick to their roles, and they try to use their skill sets to which they're set for to as great effect as possible. And so I thought it was fantastic. When I started getting low on health, I could back away and I would actually get healed without having to worry about manually attempting to switch over to another character and doing it myself. I would know that the game itself would take care of that for me, which was nice.
Yep.
I was able to stick with my character, and I didn't have to rely on items and things of that nature nearly as much as normal.
Well, you get bonus grade if you could do this without using items.
Yeah.
There are a couple things about the grade system that kind of irritate the hell out of me. And this is actually where my biggest problem with the game lies, and that's got to be saying something because it's a minor mechanic. Some of the ways they do grade just kind of make me want to climb a wall, or some of the ways that they add and deduct grade. If you get through without a status effect, you get nothing. And if you kill enemies while under a status effect, it'll peg you for it, which seems like kind of ass backwards to me. But this is the fun part. There are if you don't use an item, you get a nice fat bonus. If you use an item, you get a penalty of almost the same amount.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I didn't actually notice that.
I actually did. I actually checked that because I keep getting, defeated enemy without no items. It's no item chaos or some such thing. I forget exactly what it's called, but I can use no items and I'll get anywhere between half and 3/4 of a grade point for that, depending, of course, on how big the encounter was. I think the lowest number I've actually gotten was 0.25 for not using. And again, I went through a similar encounter in the same area, and I used one item, one only. I used a boost for. I think it was a red lavender on Velvet when she worked herself down to a single hit point with that freaking hand of hers.
Mm-hmm.
And I got docked most of a point. I'm like, damn, what the hell is that shit? I'm like, I have yet to actually run into a situation where I've had no grade point, where I've had less than 0 grade points, but still, and actually, grade only really affects things when you're working on when you go in for a new game plus, because that's what you use to buy back some of your progress from the previous version,
Right.
from the previous playthrough, and so that's actually kind of important for some people.
Yeah, which I can't even imagine even attempting to play this game through multiple times because holy crap, it is long.
Well, and I see that's just it. If you're in a new game plus situation, you crank up the difficulty because you have more ability to do that, and you can get some of the other achievements that you wouldn't otherwise. Mostly, it's for completionists, and the new game plus is for completionists. Somebody that's actually just looking to assassinate the clock, or people that are achievement hunters.
Right.
And believe me, achievement hunters, they do that. I actually do a little bit of that myself. And for some of these JRPGs, it can take 3 or 4 times through a game to get all of the achievements.
Yeah, I just even picturing that in my mind, 3 or 4 playthroughs with a game that is this insanely long, because this game does have an exceptional amount of content, which is from what you said fairly common for these developers. But yeah, so for the it's a $50 price tag. A lot of people would potentially balk from that because it's almost the price of a AAA title, but it has a very rich, in-depth story. Fantastic gameplay mechanics that you and I both have agreed on wholeheartedly. And in addition to that, it's 80 plus hours at minimum for the standard playthrough.
Mm-hmm. And see, you're under a small misconception. The Tales games are, in fact, AAA titles. And they have been since day one. The first one was Tales of Fantasia for the Super Nintendo, and they've only gotten bigger from there.
Well, it is, Bandai Namco isn't, they're not any of the most well-known AAA companies out there anymore. But yeah, they are still a AAA company, so.
Yeah, Bandai Namco was, if memory serves, Bandai Namco actually ships the Dark Souls games.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They're publishers for that.
Yep. From Software built the Dark Souls games. This is the Tales team, and a large part of that team is still together from Tales of Fantasia. You see new faces every once in a while, but a lot of the major folks that move on from game to game, you still have some of them from that very first game. So that team is actually fairly stable, and they have their own little creed. We will make a good game, and everybody will like it. The only thing that really bugs a lot of people is that most of these games don't make it to the West. And at $50 on Steam, $60 for PlayStation 4, pick your poison. The only difference between the two versions of this, as far as I can tell anyway, is that the DLC is a little more split up on the PlayStation version.
Right. Which there are 3, well, realistically 2 DLC packs. There's the Japanese Fairy and Menagerie costume set, and the Summer Holiday costume pack, and then there's the package set, which I believe contains both of those, and also contains these are all. I take it back. I'm actually completely incorrect. There are the 3. The Adventure Item Super Pack is separate from the other 2. The other 2 are cosmetic. The Adventure Item Super Pack is the one with the leveling and the HP bonus and the double money and everything. So that is
that adventure. Yeah, that Adventure Island Super Pack is actually the one I actually got. They unlike a lot of earlier Tales games, they actually put all those things together in one pack, and you don't have to buy them separately at $1 or $1.50 a piece. Costume sets are always fun, and those don't have any kind of in-game effect. They just make for some decent eye candy, depending on what sort of critter you like to look at. So
yeah, which is fine. This is actually the type of DLC that I prefer to see in video games that have just come out, because usually by the end of production and everything, the art designers and that team usually has very little, if not nothing, to do, and so you'll see that if you want them to continue working and doing some things like that, you'll see some DLC packs come out that are cosmetic only, just like the costume sets are. And so that's nice to see that they did that, and they threw in a little something that someone, it's a $20 DLC for the account boost pack, the adventure item super pack. But all of that it's not additional content. It's not like portions of the story removed or anything of that nature. It's just items and non-mechanic impacting cosmetics.
right, and even with and back to the adventure pack for just a moment. Really, those things are only of significant use to people that want to get through the game a little quicker. Because and at this point, even that's not going to be very much.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to fare a little better against bosses if you're at level 130, where as opposed to level 60, but still level 60 or 70. But that's going to be about it.
Yeah, still, it was really good to see that they didn't follow along with the traditional the traditional AAA style of the day one DLC and additional story mode and everything like that. They released a complete game, they stood by it, and then they released some additional fun things for some additional money on top of it.
And honestly, that's the way Tales games usually do. The ones that don't do that don't have DLC at all. Tales of Hearts, for example, had a shitload of DLC. There was a huge pile of DLC that went with it, all in little bits and pieces. But if you don't feel like you need it, then don't get it. Some of the DLC bits from the adventure pack are actually grade shop items that you would get later. It'll actually save you grade when you're trying to get through some of the other stuff. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other at that point. It's some of the stuff you could get in game if you wanted to slog through it, and waste a bunch of grade getting these things. Most of them are what usually winds up being expensive. Double gold, double XP, double grade, things like that.
Right.
So you're not really getting a huge overarching benefit, but you're still getting enough of a leg up that it'll be a little easier even on a harder. Not a lot, just some.
Right, but yeah, overall, pretty solid. I think a very solid offering.
Yep. I'm thinking I'm going to rate this on my usual 0 to 101 scale. I'm going for 94, 95-ish. How about you?
Yeah, typically I use a 1 through 10 scaling when I actually do bother to give it a rating. This one, I think I would actually be willing to give it a solid 9. It actually missed a full 10 out of 10, which I think I've only given to a video game once on my channel before. I only gave it, docked it down from a perfect 10 rating because the graphics are still of that PlayStation 2 era style with a lot of the gameplay, which kind of disappoints me with a lot of JRPGs, and I was hoping to see some more modernized graphics, not necessarily to the extent of the new Final Fantasy game, but something that makes it look more within the last 5 years, perhaps.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to disagree with you on this. The graphics actually suit it fairly well, especially in a few places. There's the environments, for example, are much nicer than I was expecting to begin with. Character designs are anime-ish because that's the way these games are.
Mm-hmm.
But I will disagree with you on the graphics. I think they actually suit it fairly well. I should think that Eleanor could use to be a little less prudish in her wardrobe choices, but I can pay $10 and fix that. So, other than that, it's actually done pretty well. There is actually a little bit later, a little bit before, just the area right ahead of where I am now. Right before we go raid their training tower, there's a vista you can look out at. It is a bunch of geysers surrounded by water, and you can see the rainbows that are being made with all the mist in the air.
Oh, nice. And I'm not. Don't get me wrong, viewers. At least that I'm not saying that the graphics of this game is bad by any means. They're actually not, like he says. But again, this is all subjective, and it's going to be. And I just personally was hoping to see a little bit more, a little bit more. Not even a whole lot necessarily, but just a bit more with the characterization models and everything like that. They just felt a touch dated.
Okay, I thought they were a hair cartoony, but a large part of that is that they used a fairly complex cell shader on the characters as opposed to as opposed to a little bit different filter for the environments. So you get a little bit more realistic looking critters out there, but Eleanor still looks like she stepped out of an anime from last Tuesday.
Which the cutscenes though, the cutscenes, they look like fully rendered anime cartoons in every sense of the term, and I love those.
Oh yeah. Especially right at the beginning of the game, they had several of them. The opening sequence is not actually rendered in engine; it is actually an anime.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, there is actually a full anime for this, for this game and SidAlpha. Don't quote me on that, though. I might be wrong with that.
Yeah, definitely something to be worth checking out, though, because overall, this is a fantastic game, and like I said, a 9 out of 10. And it only missed a full 10 out of 10, a full legendary rating from me, strictly because of a personal preference on design. That's it. Everything else with this game is phenomenal, from the voice acting to the combat to the overall length and depth of the gameplay and all of the mechanics involved. This is an exceptionally polished game with that. I'm going to continue playing it once we're finished here, which I normally don't do with most games.
I'm going to finish this game. That is for certain. A lot of people have been saying, "Well, why don't you go finish Resident Evil 7?" Tales of Berseria is at the moment much more entertaining.
Yeah, I've avoided doing a review for Resident Evil 7 because I know I'm going to piss off the fan base, and I'm trying to avoid it.
Yeah, I don't. My opinions of Resident Evil 7 are actually fairly well known at this point. It is a game that managed to creep me out, but it's not a game that I think I would sink 40 or 50 hours into. So that's kind of a thing.
Yeah, it didn't even manage to creep me out.
Oh, wow. Okay, then. So I think that's going to be where we're going to wrap this up. Final comments from you, Sid?
That if you're a fan of JRPGs at all, or even interested in the genre, the Tales of Berseria is most definitely a must-own. And I'm proud to have it in my library, and I look forward to playing a lot more of it because there is a lot more to play.
Yeah, don't forget SidAlpha when you go there, man. I'm telling you,
absolutely
play it in its entirety after you finish with Berseria. You will get the joke much easier. Yeah, for me, Tales of Berseria is one of those like Yahtzee, Croshaw, and Psychonauts. If you do not own / do not play this, have not played this game, grab a pencil. Stick it between the middle and third finger on one hand, grab the ends of your fingers, and clamp down hard. Then go buy the game and play it anyway.
Wow.
You don't have to get the DLC. DLC's is a complete extra, but yeah, you definitely if you have ever loved a JRPG, or you're a Tales fan, have ever played one of the earlier Tales games, go get this game. Do it now.
You will not regret it.
No, especially if you get the Steam version, which is $10 cheaper.
Exactly.
And the PlayStation 4 game than the PlayStation 4 version, and it runs just butter smooth for the most part. So, again, that's going to be it for us, I think. I want to thank you, Sid, for turning up to help me with this one.
Yeah, thank you for actually coming up with the idea. It was actually a little bit more fun than I thought it was going to be. Normally, I'm very opinionated and set in my ways, but I think it ended up turning out pretty well.
Yep. At least in this case, I'm pretty sure we'll come up with a game that we disagree on eventually.
Oh dear God in heaven! I can imagine the war that would ensue.
Oh yeah. Oh no, the war would actually. I think the war part would actually be fun. All right. So, folks, that's it. We will see you guys another time. Between now and then, be safe, be sane, and let's make games fun again.